I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, a look at what to expect from the President's State of the Union speech tonight. Also, local law enforcement is getting ready to drop the hammer on human trafficking. And 2 local schools are tapped for a program to give 4-year degrees at the community college level.
And despite the drought, you can still take a shower, drink tap water, and flush. But what does the drought have to do with your wallet, jobs, and California's economy? I'm Peggy Pico with the value of the Colorado River in dollars and cents. Plus, the first look at a new PBS series, Earth, A New Wild, the relationship between humans, wildlife, and wild places.
Nobody goes to the hospital for the food, but that doesn't mean it has to taste bad. We'll show you how San Diego hospitals are serving up a better grade of healthy fare. And San Diego's newest Y has a pool with a view, but for some folks that's a problem. We'll explain. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. In 1 hour, President Barack Obama goes before a joint session of Congress to deliver his 6th State of the Union address. Excerpts released earlier today by the White House include a call for Congress to pass a resolution authorizing use of force against the Islamic State. Other parts of the speech focus on domestic proposals. They face long odds of passing in the new Republican-controlled Congress, especially a proposal to raise the capital gains tax on the wealthiest Americans. The revenue would be funneled into measures to help the middle class, including a $500 tax credit for some families with 2 working spouses. Now, other proposals include expansion of the child care tax credit, a $60 billion program to offer free community college, and more paid leave for workers. We'll bring you the President's address in a special edition of PBS NewsHour. That begins at 6 o'clock this evening. KPBS Radio, by the way, will also carry the President's address on 89.5 FM. It will be followed by the Republican response from Iowa Senator Joni Ernst. Some current and former San Diegans will be in the audience tonight. One of them is Marine veteran Andrew Tamarisi, who was held for months, you may recall, in a Mexican prison after driving across the border here with guns in his truck. He's a guest of East County Congressman Duncan Hunter. And Jean and Howard Summers of Coronado will attend tonight, as well as guests of Congressman Scott Peters. The Summers became advocates for reforming the VA after their son's post-traumatic stress led him to suicide. Tomorrow morning, you'll hear a lot of analysis of the President's speech tonight from pundits and politicians. San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer will be one of the politicians. He's in Washington this evening for a mayor's conference. Faulconer is scheduled to appear on MSNBC at 9 tomorrow morning to discuss the State of the Union speech. Jury selection is now underway in the trial of James Holmes, the former San Diegan who killed a dozen people and wounded dozens more in a Colorado movie theater. Holmes admits to the shooting but says he's not guilty by reason of insanity. 9,000 jury summons were sent out, but the pool was cut to 7,000 this morning because some notices couldn't be delivered, and some folks were excused. Holmes could be sentenced to death. His parents are begging for a plea deal to save his life. More than a dozen law enforcement agencies are teaming up to combat human trafficking. The FBI listed San Diego as one of the worst areas for child prostitution. The new task force includes agents from federal, state, and local agencies, for the first time working together in a central location.
The task force will bring the hammer down on human traffickers by combining the impressive weight and expertise of our respective agencies. It will identify and rescue those who are being victimized, connecting them with social, legal, and immigration services.
Prosecutions for human trafficking in the county have more than tripled over the past 5 years. San Diego City Council's approved new rules and new costs for marijuana dispensaries. The minimum operating fee will be just over $1,000 for a small dispensary. Larger ones will have to pay more. There aren't any legal dispensaries in the city yet. The one approved permit is being appealed in a hearing next week. About 24 students were sent home from an Orange County high school this morning because they weren't vaccinated against the measles. Huntington Beach High School confirmed another student did have the illness. The unvaccinated students were told to stay home until January 29th. Measles has been spreading in California and 3 other states since an outbreak at Disneyland in Anaheim. There are 10 confirmed cases here in San Diego County. 2 San Diego schools were chosen today for a statewide pilot program to offer bachelor's degrees at the community colleges. Miracosta College in Oceanside would offer a degree in biomanufacturing, and Mesa College's degree program would be in health information management.
These will be degrees that aren't comparable to UC or CSU degrees. These will be degrees that are now offered only by the for-profit schools that charge a great deal of money and often don't produce very good results for students.
San Diego Senator Marty Block there wrote the bill to allow the 4-year degree programs. The State Community College Board is expected to give final approval in March. The ongoing drought is increasing California's fire danger by making our forests denser. University of California researchers say the forests are getting overstocked with smaller trees, putting them at higher risk for disease and wildfires.
All the forests in California are being affected, maybe not all equally to the same level, but they all are showing significant signs of stress related to the drought. We're seeing a lot of trees being killed just from moisture stress or insect and disease. CAL FIRE
says it's working to thin out the trees to reduce the risk. More than $1 trillion flowing through 7 states, including California, could dry up if the Colorado River continues to diminish. Peggy Pico explains the impact of the river on our jobs and the economy.
Aside from having enough to drink or water crops, just 10% reduction in Colorado River water could result in more than 1.5 million jobs being lost. And according to a recent report from Arizona State University, if the river runs dry, so will nearly 2/3 of the economy in western states dependent on the Colorado River. Here with a look at the financial impact is my guest, Ann Tart, with Protect the Flows, a coalition of businesses that depend on the Colorado River. And Ann, remind us again, what is the drought doing to the Colorado River right now?
Well, it's making things pretty challenging in the river. We've seen reservoir levels in the river basin at historic lows, meaning if it gets much lower, for example, the Hoover Dam won't be able to generate power from Lake Mead. The U.S. Bureau of Reclamation says that the river already, demand for the river's water already exceeds supply, so that's a pretty serious challenge. And climate models say if it's going to get hotter and drier in the region and as population grows, we could really see a lack of river water to supply us with our needs.
Sure, there's the side of we may not be getting as much rainfall or snowfall and the water actually diminishing, but there's also the population growth, even if it stays the same.
That's right.
There's several scenarios in this report, starting with a 10% reduction of water flow at the Colorado River and moving upwards. Where and how would you say, let's say, the 20% drop in water, how would that impact our economy here?
With a 20% drop in river levels, we would see about 3.2 million jobs being lost through the river basin, and about $290 billion worth of economic value at stake in that scenario.
Now, when you're talking about these scenarios, it's not just agriculture. There's not that, when you're talking about these job losses, how is that linked?
That's right. The report really underscores that the river supports sectors, very diverse sectors. So everything from manufacturing to retail to science and technology companies would be impacted by this.
How likely do you think is the scenario of a 10 to 20% water drop in the river, and how long could that take?
Well, the report doesn't really go there, but I will say that there are other documents and studies that estimate that anywhere from a 10 to 15 to 20% drop is possible, definitely by the end of this century.
So it's a viable option. Give us some examples of how you mentioned some of these other jobs, maybe healthcare, or real estate, or things that are linked to this. How are they? Manufacturing, perhaps?
Well, companies use water for so many different things you wouldn't think about. I mean, everything from cleaning to cooling their plants or facilities to irrigating their landscapes. So it can really impact every single sector. And then there's kind of ripple effects. If agriculture suffers, for example, a loss because of lack of water, then other companies that provide services and products to agricultural sector,
like tractor builders, or pesticides, okay,
exactly,
I see,
would be affected.
Of the 7 states that depend on the Colorado River, the ASU report finds that California gets the biggest benefit at about $657 billion a year. So that also puts us at a big risk. What are businesses doing to respond to that threat?
That's a great question. We're seeing a lot of businesses in this region, right here in San Diego County, respond very proactively. Life Technologies, a biotech company in Carlsbad, has reduced their water use by 50% over the last 5 years. Other companies, Hunter Industries manufactures irrigation supplies in San Marcos, also doing a lot to reduce their water use.
Yeah, what are they doing?
For example, in Hunter's case, they replaced some of the turf along their campus with drought-tolerant native habitation, and it's, I think, saving them, I think they said 1.4 million gallons of water a year. So there's things like that they can do. I'm working also with some breweries in the region that are looking at their cleaning and cooling processes and figuring out ways to reuse and recycle water for cleaning purposes. So there's a lot of things that companies can do to just get more efficient and stop being as wasteful.
Do you see this report as a warning, as a planning document? How do you read it?
I see it as a little bit of both. I think that's a great question. Definitely it heightens our awareness in terms of, wow, this is really a significant resource, but also helps us to think about how do we need to become more efficient and what can we do to reuse, recycle water to mitigate against the risk of this.
All right, Ann Tart, thanks so much for the update.
Thanks so much, Peggy.
Gas prices continue to fall. San Diego's average price for unleaded is at its lowest level in nearly 6 years, down to $2.48 a gallon. The drop in gas prices isn't leading to a drop in grocery bills. In fact, analysts say we're likely to pay more this year because fuel prices are just a fraction of the cost of food production. There's also labor, processing, and packaging to consider. Historically, it takes up to a year for oil prices to make a difference at the checkout stand. San Diego Assemblywoman Toni Atkins has introduced a bill to support open-air seafood markets like the one on San Diego's waterfront. The Pacific to Plate bill would cut red tape for fishermen by streamlining the permit process. It would also let sellers clean fresh fish for sale. Currently, they have to sell it whole. Well, good food doesn't usually come to mind when you think of hospitals, but some San Diego County hospitals are trying to change that perception. KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg shows us what they're serving up these days.
You won't find fried chicken or glazed donut in the cafeteria at Sharp Memorial Hospital. Instead, you'll find displays of fresh fruit.
This is from our own garden.
And a big salad bar.
Seeds, cucumbers.
And the entrees? How about pot roast with seasoned vegetables or citrus and herb-crusted salmon?
I hire executive chefs just like restaurants and hotels. Why should our food not be amazing? Because we're a hospital.
District Manager Lauren Blacker has helped transform the menus at Sharp through a partnership with the food service company Sodexo. It's been a 5-year journey. Early on, Sharp decided to toss out the salt and sugar and bypass processed food. Now it's all about using fresh herbs and spices. Nearly 30% of its produce is from local growers. Blacker says she wants to motivate and inspire people to make healthy choices.
And in a burger, maybe the burger that we're providing you or encouraging you to enjoy is local, antibiotic-free, sustainable. And we're saying, today, instead of getting French fries with that, why don't you get baked Lay's or a side of vegetables?
Sharp's efforts are part of a national campaign to improve the health and sustainability of the healthcare sector. The U.S. Department of Agriculture says healthier diets might prevent $71 billion in medical costs each year. The Healthier Hospitals Initiative encourages hospitals to set an example by serving healthy food and beverages. That includes reducing the amount of meat and sugary beverages and increasing the percentage of locally grown food. Executive Chef Justin Searle says Sharp is all in. They even use fresh vegetables from their own organic garden.
So over here we've got some Japanese eggplant growing. As you can see, it's going to start out with the buds and the flowers, and then it's slowly coming into this. So once they get a little bit larger, we'll go ahead and harvest them and we'll use them in the cafeteria.
Searle says the days of hospitals serving TV dinners and tapioca pudding are over.
You know, we really don't feel that hospital food should be bland and tasteless. You know, hospital food is medicine, and that's what we're trying to teach people. So it needs to taste good. It needs to be appealing, appetizing. That's got to be satisfying.
Palomar Hospital in Escondido is also taking part in the Healthier Hospitals initiative. Like Sharp, Palomar buys a lot of its food from local growers, and it bakes or grills all of its entrees. Palomar's Jim Metzger says the hospital is trying to reduce the amount of meat served to patients.
And we know that there are other ways that we can round out that plate with delicious wild rice, beautiful whole wheat pastas.
Palomar considers its food service to exemplify the hospital's hotel-like ambiance. Patients can choose from nearly 3 dozen entrees. All meals are cooked to order and served any time during the day. Metzger says in today's world where hospitals compete for patients, patients expect more than a bland meal and a nondescript room.
They want a different experience, and I think that just in the same manner that we travel differently and look for different hotels that our parents opted for, that quest is going to be the same in medical care. So we have to continue to grow and challenge ourselves.
So the next time you're in a local hospital, chances are you'll get a healthy, nutritious meal that actually tastes good. Sharp Vice President Donna Serpico-Thompson says the cafeteria food is so good, you could even bring a date.
Sure, bring a date. You can't have wine, but you can bring a date.
Kenny Goldberg, KPBS News.
I was expecting it would be more covered than this, or at least.
Mid-City's new YMCA boasts an impressive glass-enclosed swimming pool, but the facility for this largely immigrant community doesn't offer much privacy. For Muslim women who want to swim and keep modest, their religious guidelines keep them from swimming in front of men. For nearly 3 years, they've been able to take special women-only classes at the old Y. Now, they're trying to find a way to keep the classes going in the new Y.
It's a place that we can get out our stress, and then also like exercise-wise, some of us don't get exercise, and that's a place, sometimes it's the only place where we can exercise, and it's really saved us a lot in terms of health.
It's at a really diverse epicenter of San Diego's mid-city area, and it has a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds, and the Y's for everybody. We want to make sure that our program reflects that diversity.
The women are looking at putting a retractable shade on the more exposed walls. They may look for a donor to pay for it or raise money to pay for it themselves. San Diego Museum of Art is adding to its large collection of Spanish art with the acquisition of an oil painting from the 17th century. St. Francis in Prayer in a Grotto will be on permanent display to commemorate Balboa Park's centennial this year. The Baroque style was influenced heavily by the Catholic Church. The museum's director says it's a masterpiece from one of the greatest painters during the golden age of Spanish art.
But Zurbarán, who is the perfect representation of the Baroque in Spain, is very well known by his monks, by the figure of St. Francis of Assisi. And we all know that California is very well known by the Franciscan missions.
Conrad Prebis and Debbie Turner, seen here, gave the museum $1.5 million to purchase the painting. San Diego Museum of Art is celebrating 100 years in Balboa Park, opening its doors for free during the last weekends in January and February. We've got a first look at a new PBS series airing next month right here on KPBS. It offers a look at nature as never seen before. Peggy Pico shows us what's different about the series.
The spectacular 5-part series called Earth, A New Wild, takes you to 29 different countries to explore the relationship between humans, the planet's wildest animals, and its impact.
Same dock. Same season. Same ocean. but very different fish.
Welcome ecologist Im Sanjan, host of the new PBS series Earth, A New Wild. Now, Sanjan, where are some of these places that you're taking us to in this series?
It's really, the question is, where didn't we go? We went to 29 countries, as we said, and you know, everywhere from the smallest and most remote atoll in the middle of the Pacific to the Arctic, to Uzbekistan, to Zimbabwe, to Russia, China, India, and of course, quite a bit in the United States as well.
You have a wide range of animals as well. Could you just highlight a few of the animals we might see? Just a couple.
I mean, you're going to see pandas, right? You just keep saying pandas, pandas, pandas. You're going to see tigers. You're going to see chimpanzees with Jane Goodall. You're going to see whales and sharks, but different kinds of sharks that you've never heard of before. Really, vultures, fish in Lake Malawi, wolves, bears.
So common and not
Lions.
so common. So, yeah, we did see there's some lions in there. The aim of this nature series is looking at it from a new perspective. Give us a few examples of how this perspective is different than other nature shows.
You know, we didn't want to do your typical nature show, which just shows you nature in its splendor, but in isolation. You don't ever see a human, you don't see a wire, you don't see a road, you don't see anything, right, except that spectacle. At the same time, we didn't want to do a show that's all about me, which is, you know, going, catching the animal and doing something to it. We really wanted to show you the planet as it really is. I mean, a wildlife spectacle is made even more spectacular when you realize that it's happening within the human context.
And you've said, you know, we got it all wrong when thinking about the relationship between humans and animals. Could you elaborate on that?
Well, I just think that, you know, humans are part of that picture. And we've been on this planet for several million years, or hominids have anyway, and we've incredibly influenced the planet, both good and bad. And I think the story is just richer and more interesting when humans are part of it. And frankly, it's only when we really start seeing ourselves as part of nature does the reasons for saving nature become evident, which is really in our own enlightened self-interest.
In this interaction, of course, is fascinating from the parts that I've seen. Of course, there's a measurable cost to it. Here's how Professor Jeremy Jackson, he's a marine ecologist from Scripps Institution of Oceanography, explains it.
There used to be a lot of big animals. We ate them. There used to be a lot of three-dimensional structure, mangroves, kelp forests, coral reefs. They're being leveled. There used to be very few bacteria and stuff in the water. Now there's a massive cloud of bacteria. That is what's going on in the ocean today. That is the rise of slime.
Now, Jackson's just exploring one segment, the ocean segment. What are some of the other segments we're going to see?
Well, Jackson just sets it up, and I just want to make it clear that, you know, we don't want to not tell you what the planet is facing, but we want to use that as the starting point to move on. You're going to hear about grasslands and what makes grasslands so special and how all the animals and people and the interaction between the two is really what keeps grasslands productive. We go to the world's forests and ask this really simple question, are forests valuable while they're still standing? We look at fresh water, which is really probably the hardest show in some ways to make because it's such a difficult topic to really get into. But we do it in this incredible, spectacular way. Go to Uzbekistan, to the 4th largest freshwater lake on the planet that disappeared on our watch. And then we talk about our home, which is really the environment where we are coming into contact with big wild animals and what that looks like.
And there are still some wild animals here in the United States as well as, of course, elsewhere around the world. What do you hope this series will accomplish? Is there an accomplishment goal?
I want people to enjoy it, and I think they will. I want it to knock their socks off. I want people to say, I really didn't know that. And I want them to be visually stunned. And then I want them to get that tiny little bit of feeling that says, saving nature really makes our lives better.
Well, from the little I've seen, I think it will do just that. Dr. Im Sanjan, thanks so much for joining us and talking about this series. And I want to let folks know the first episode of Earth, A New Wild airs on February 4th at 9 p.m. right here on KPBS.
I'm Judy Woodruff on the next News Hour special coverage of the President's State of the Union address to the nation with Mark Shields and David Brooks. That's Tuesday on the PBS News Hour.
Warmer temperatures are on the way. Upper 60s along the coast tomorrow. Climbing to the low 70s Thursday and Friday. Also look for higher tides than usual along the beaches and possible flooding in low-lying areas. The inland valleys might get, or rather see, some dense fog once again tomorrow morning. Temperatures later in the day, 70s for the next few days inland. Sunny in the mountains, temperatures there in the 50s, mid-70s in the desert with a mix of sun and clouds. Evening edition will not be seen at 6:30 tonight because of the President's State of the Union address. President Obama is expected to propose tax increases for the wealthiest Americans and a variety of credits for the middle class. Our coverage begins at 6 on KPBS TV and radio at 89.5 FM. It will include the Republican response to be given by Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa. Join us again on the radio tomorrow morning for more reaction and analysis of the President's speech throughout Morning Edition. And on Midday Edition tomorrow at noon, we'll talk with political science professor Carl Luna, and we'll tell you what San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer had to say about the President's speech. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.